Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Kevin King, Jason Boyce, and Steve Simonson. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 26 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book that I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have here with me today Danny McMillan. Danny is the host of Seller Sessions, the largest podcast for advanced Amazon sellers. He also runs a yearly live event of that same name. And I think just about any time you look, he's on Facebook Live talking with guests from throughout the e-commerce world. I think it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, maybe. I mean, I don't know when you get a chance to sleep, Danny, but he's always got some type of programming going on. He's a world-renowned public speaker and a veteran Amazon seller. He's also the co-founder of Databrill, where he works with a respected algorithm expert, Dr. Ellis Whitehead, and Databrill manages PPC and advertising automation for 7- and 8-figure Amazon brands. And in addition to Seller Sessions Live, he also runs the Branded by Women Summit and Seller Poll, which is the annual awards that's well known throughout the Amazon FBA world. And with that accent of his, trust me, you'll want to buy anything that he's selling. And it's my pleasure to welcome Danny McMillan. Welcome, Danny.
Wow, that was a big intro. Thank you, Rich, for having me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. And by the way, where is your accent from? Where did it originally come?
I'm originally from East London in the UK. So if you're the American audience, some people think I sound like Jason Statham from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. But yeah, no, I'm from East London. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's just instant credibility that comes with that.
I don't know about that. I mean, most people think with an East London accent, you're a bit of a toe rag. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Over here, maybe we can't tell the difference, but like I said, I mean, when I listen to you talk, I'd buy anything that you're selling. So, so it's working. Now, let's talk about your path. I know you started out as a DJ, or in the past you were a DJ, and that gave you some of your first experiences with innovating. Yeah. So tell me about DJing. And did you do that also in East London?
I DJ'd all over the world. I was lucky, like part of the story where it really began for me, like it's hard to call it innovation in the sense like of Elon Musk, right? That's real innovation, next level stuff. But what happened with us is that we take it back to 1998. I built my whole career off, it was an album called New School Breaks. And this was mixed by a guy called Rennie Pilgrim. I was already in the music industry for a number of years. And I was at the Miami Winter Music Conference that takes place in March each year. And I remember going to a club called Salvation, and they were playing what was called like Miami Breaks. Now, a lot of that is more like commercial kind of stuff. It's like mid-tempo, same speed as house music. And I really, really liked it, a lot of it. But I thought, what if we were to mix other sounds with that? Like if we were mixing, I don't know, some techno sounds and drum and bass and things like that. And when we talk about innovation, timing, breakthroughs and everything else, I got back from Miami, and I used to write for industry Bible called Record Mirror. And that was inserted into Music Week, which was a magazine for the music industry. I
remember Record Mirror.
Yeah, so I used to write there on a weekly basis. And a guy called Rennie Pilgrim ended up sending me a record called A Place Called Acid, which was very much influenced by that US sound. At the same time, I was speaking to another guy called Adam Freeland, who worked at Slice PR. He was promoting a guy called Carl Cox's album. And then he dropped an album called Coastal Breaks. Okay, but again, very much with the American kind of Miami sound, the Miami bass sound mixed with breaks and stuff like that. And so I'm back in the UK. I'm speaking to Adam. I get this record from Rennie Pilgrim. I then gone, we've got to do something here. This is great. And they had a club called Friction, which I was a warm-up DJ at. And I approached Rennie and I said, look, let's get together a collection of this music from the different producers and stuff. And so we got to a stage where my recording partner at the time, called Kevin Bieber, we were recording as Uptown Connection, and I was recording with other people as well. And so I said to Rennie, look, I've got a contact with Kicking Records. I'd already had experience putting out compilations and albums and stuff. And I said to him, why don't we do something in and around this music? You know, like you're putting out a lot of stuff. There's another guy at the time called Dave Tipper. You won't know any of these names, but if you look at Wikipedia entries and stuff, you can kind of piece it all together. And so we dropped this album called New School Breaks, and literally exploded. It was all in the dance magazines, media and stuff. A guy called Tayo as well, who's a very big proponent of the sound as well. He actually was working at Slice PR that took over from Adam. Adam had already dropped Coastal Breaks as an album. Carl Cox has taken him under his wing. He was doing shows on Radio 1 with Annie Nightingale. And then what happened is like, the joke is that you could fit all of these people into a phone box.
Right.
And when the album dropped in 98, that exploded. And it was deemed a new sound. So they'd done like New School Breaks, and we were on in all these different magazines, like Music Magazine at the time. We were in Mix Mag Update, Jockey Slut Magazine. And so it was like an explosion had landed. And you get waves where we call them scenes, right? So there's sets of other things. So
but that's so exciting. So like just all at once, there was all this attention on what you're doing. Yeah.
And so what happened, we have a night called Friction, which was run at a place called Bar Rumba. I'll tell you a funny story about that in a minute. And it was packed all round. Like we'd bring in these DJs. I used to be the warm-up DJ there, and Adam and Tayo and Rennie were the residents and the headliners. And it was like the club was banged out. So the timing was perfect. The execution of the PR was perfect, and then the album exploded, done well in terms of sales, and it become like a critical acclaimed album for that genre. Hence the name New School Breaks. It was named after that. Now Adam's album came out, Coastal Breaks, before, which had a lot more of the US sound in the mix, but this was like exclusive tracks from producers and stuff in the UK. And so what happened there is like, it's about timing and making the right decision, because I was recording first as the Boundary Hunters with a guy called Mikey James, and Norman Cook, because Big Beat was big at the time. Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim, his label was interested in the Boundary Hunters track. And when I spoke to Rennie, he said to me, let me have that. And I had to make a decision. Do I give it to the Big Beat crowd, right? Or do I go this way? And my gut says, let's go with a new thing. Let's go with like the tomorrow, not what's been around. And this at the time, Big Beat was very popular. So it's about the decisions and the timing and everything that you make. So we put that out on a label called TCR, which is Rennie's label. Then Kicking Records, who we put the compilation out, offered me a job. I was already working at a jungle label, a hardcore drum and bass label called Strictly Underground Records. So I left Strictly Underground. I was going to go to Kicking Records because they offered me a job, but Rennie said, no, come work with me. So I went and worked with him and put a lot of faith in that as well. And so in that period of time, everything's exploding. I'm starting to build my name as a DJ. And then in 1999, I brought out an album which was still breaks, but much more melodic and musical. And that was called New Shapes in Breaks. And that's where my DJ career exploded, because whereas the other sound was more like darker sounds, if you like, with big drum and bass lines and stuff, mine was much more melodic, like that kind of liquid drum and bass, but like 130. So I was able to establish myself as a DJ there. And that I got to do about 19 tours across the US in that period. Then we recorded more records. Then me and Kevin, as Uptown Connection, signed to Carl Cox's label, Ultimatum, at the time.
What was your DJ name, by the way?
Oh, it's just Danny McMillan. I just went out under my own name, but then I recorded under a series of different names with other people. And so from there, we got a situation where, as you get more popular, my album I think it was DJ Magazine in the UK, it was voted the third best compilation of the year. And then I was nominated as one of the DJs to watch in 2000, because this was like 98, 99. So where we're going from there is then Adam Freeland was doing the Kiss show, and then he stepped down because he was doing more work with Radio 1. And then I landed a rotation on Kiss show, and then end up doing Kiss for 2 years, the Breakbeat show there. So all of that was all about timing.
Right.
And is about, getting as much music out as possible. And that was not something I was very good at, because I was a perfectionist. Right. It would take me a lot of time to get records together. So there was like delays in between. So the peak of my career then, and with what we've done, very proud of what we've done musically, but it's a subset of the subgenre, because your experiences are, you're taking influence from the Miami sound and the West Coast breakbeat sound of the US, but putting a UK twist on it. But the most interesting thing is to take a few people, maybe a dozen people, and then suddenly explodes and it becomes a scene. Suddenly you're going to Australia, you're DJing all over America, you're going all around Europe and stuff like that. And then there was few key DJs that really started to take off and build careers from it.
And so, like, if you zoom in then on those moments where, like, when you're in the moment, like, all you know is what's happening right now. Yeah. And so but you're forced with making a lot of micro decisions about your career. Do I go this way or that way? Do I go with the new thing, or do I do something which kind of ties into things that people already are familiar with or already like? And so I guess that's one of the challenges with innovation is it's a bit of a right place at the right time. And it's about making the right decisions about what you go with, whether you go with the big breakthrough or you go with the little innovation that maybe is more familiar to people. And it sounds like that's part of what you experienced. When you DJ.
Very much so. Yeah. And you learn, and you're learning on your feet, and being younger, you don't know how long it's going to last, and it's fickle. It's very, very fickle. This is why I'm grateful today. Like, I don't, I've kind of built up and I get to speak around the world, but it could be gone tomorrow. So I work really hard and try and maintain a consistency. That perfection back then and the lack of consistency was probably the biggest part of the downfall. Do you see what I mean? Because of the lack of the consistency.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so like the steadiness of steadily coming out with something would have maybe served better in those moments. Yeah. And you learn from that. And then you also had another experience with product innovation. So before you even got into the Amazon world, you were spending a lot of time DJing, and so naturally you came up with an idea that would make your life easier or make your DJ sets better. And so tell me about that.
So I wasn't, let's be clear, to bring out the first mixer or anything. What it was is they're called DJ controllers. So they're controlled by MIDI, and you're using software to create the triggers.
The control surface.
Control surface. Yeah. So
I actually have one. Yeah. I bought a Pioneer DDJ SX, and when that came out about 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah. And by the way, my DJ name is Wayne RG. Wow. First and last initial RG, Rich Goldstein. Wayne is my middle name. So I flipped it around and I called myself Wayne RG. But that's about as far as I got, as I made a DJ name for myself.
Lovely. Well, you got to start somewhere. And the thing
exactly.
is, with stuff like that, DJing from your bedroom and getting on a flight and getting paid to play records to thousands of people, because I've done Glastonbury and places like that as well in the UK. It's not a 1 in a million, but it's a bit of a lottery, because you just, you know, you could DJ in bars all your life and never get that break. And so break.
It's like getting into professional sports.
Yeah.
You know,
You know,
something
like
like
being
that.
a football player, or a basketball player, you know, there's a lot of broken hearts. They're really good and they don't make the cut. So back with the controller, wasn't the first one to do it. Let's be clear. What happened is that M Audio, which is a manufacturing company, I used to do product demonstrations. So it's like, because we're now going from 98, 99, 2000, 2001. When the internet really kind of kicked in and LimeWire and everything, zoom, the career went right down because the music industry changed and it was a big shuffle. So my career, like the peak of my career, was really 98 to about 2003. In about 2005, I was doing a lot of work in teaching audio engineering in colleges and stuff. And I got involved a lot with Ableton Live, which is a software today. And I got bored with DJing, so I wanted to have a controller, and I had this tiny little plastic M Audio thing. It had a crossfader and just a couple of rotary knobs, and it wasn't laid out. You could tell it was just like plastic. As soon as you moved the crossfader, it moved and flew across the table. So we built our own custom mixer. So it was a large mixer the size of, say, a Pioneer, not as sexy and well designed and manufactured. This was all done in a sheet metal fabrication shop. My father-in-law used to be an engineer at Ford, so he'd done all the electronics boards and stuff. We stripped down the guts of this M Audio as a demonstrational purposes, laid it out so that we could have all these different triggers, crossfaders, sweeps, high frequency, low frequency EQs, and all the geeky stuff. And so went and had, we made that, spent some money there. And then in order to gather the interest, I went to the media because my relationship with the media was good. And then we got features in Future Music and a few of the other technical magazines here in the UK. Once I got that, I then took that to Ableton, who I was already doing product demonstrations for, to get their back and say, look, if I bring this out, can we message this to your audience? At that time, I think they had about 10 million user base already. And then I started going around and see Focusrite and a few of the other companies to garner some interest. And I won't name the company, but I landed on one, which is an old school company who had been around for years. And they were known to work with like a lot of the 80s synth pop people and stuff. It's a smaller shop, you know, workout. But the problem where that went wrong is we spent 2 years going back and forth, waiting our turn to get in round to developing the product. And our negotiations with him were very loose in terms of what we would get. I'd already lined up some endorsements of some key name DJs, had the press behind it. And also we obviously had the relationship with M Audio as well. And then that kind of fell out of bed because when it come to the crunch, he said, I'll give you £1 a unit. And I'm like, look, we're selling this for like £500-600 because we want a nice custom made, well-designed unit.
Like 0.2%.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm bringing everything. I know you bring manufacturing and stuff like that, but I'm bringing all the PR, I'm bringing the route to market, and bringing all these things. And you could have told me this 2 years ago. So that was kind of made me disillusioned with the music industry. I mean, I went on to another career there in terms of startup, but that was, again, timing was right and wrong. So come up with the idea, found the route to market, put something behind it, poor negotiations from me. Now, I've got a controller, I've got a DJ 2020 there, Pioneer one, which is like 160 quid. Because obviously cost of components and stuff come down over time. But there's another example where you had the opportunity in the market, you missed the timing, and the decisions that you made were the wrong decisions. Right.
It's the decisions and also the people. It's like obviously the person that you were working with didn't see the value enough to want to pay to pay you appropriately for it. And it's what had it fall apart. So it's not, you know, it's about the decisions you make, and it's about the people you surround yourself with, and that you have around you at the time those moments come. But then I feel like you've leveraged a lot of that experience into what you're doing now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then kind of like from there, you moved on to the Amazon world and into marketing,
Well,
right?
there was a step in between. I
Mhm.
got approached by someone in the Gold District to set up an internet, as we called it, because I'm like, what do I know about the internet? And so the story was, I was still teaching at this. It was called Point Blank, which is a training school, and I used to work at like a highbrow college called Alchemia. Which is since closed. And so I met a guy there from the Gold District, which is Hatton Garden in London. And he said, I want to set up an online music site. And we set up, you can look at it, we've got a real big hiding from the main tech guy in the UK. We were featured on Top TechCrunch and got completely abused. He was absolutely right in everything he said, because we built a social network magazine that was based on advertising, display advertising. In 2008, we went 14 months into stealth mode, building this platform, which effectively no one wanted, that fell out of bed after spending $500,000 in 2 years. And the moral of the story, well, not the moral of the story, but how we got going was like, when he said, Danny, listen, we're going to do this online, and I'm like, what the F do I know about the internet? And he went, don't worry, you will learn. And that was my baptism of fire for the internet, because I'd just done everything wrong through I went in with that with zero knowledge. I was looking around and going, why does MySpace have all this stuff? And then I found out after, because it was like, no, you don't build it in the way that they come. And so the lessons learned from that is that whenever I launched a series of businesses after that, but I would build one web page with copy on, some images, a landing page, run PPC, have a phone, and take inbound inquiries and iterate, and then work out if it's a business or not, spending £200.
Right. So you test the interest, and then you build the business around the interest.
Yeah, exactly. So from that, I've then gone through a series of all these different businesses. A lot of them didn't work out, which is fine. But the big learning from that is we'd done rhythmics.com, which was everything to everyone but no one, without a solid business model, that went into stealth mode for 14 months, and we built it and no one came to a point. And so there's a bit of innovation that no one wants. So we actually built an iPhone attached to a fridge. You know, it was a fridge iPhone. Who wants a fridge iPhone? When you combine in all of these disparate elements together, they just simply don't work. But then I took that, and then we built various different businesses. We were testing them, and then discovered Amazon in 2015. And all of those mistakes, the lack of consistency, the over perfection and everything else, by the time I got to 2015, my gut felt it again. I went to a first meetup here in the UK, met a guy called Anthony, met a lot of the sellers I know today in that room on that day. Wow. And it was like, something magical's happening here. Something's happening and I can't put my finger on it. And then boom, just hit the ground running. And so we built the podcast, and off the back of the podcast came the agency, and then the events business. You know, you got Branded by Women, you got the Seller Poll, and it's all kind of built. And I constantly are putting out content all the time, because I realized, like, you know, my podcast don't have intros or anything. It's raw, no edits or anything like that. My thing is, look, everyone wants content. You're only as good as your last piece of content. You need to be consistent. So it took all the negatives and was able to grow what we did in the UK to a decent sized audience in the last few years. But that's because I took the opportunity and run with the ball before anyone else did. Like, when people think about what goes on in the UK, there's a few people now, but like a couple of years ago, you it's not like a US when you go, oh, Kevin King, this person, that person, you know, you might go to the UK and go, who's in the UK? And you might, my name might come up and maybe one other, you know. There are, as I said, more people, and you've got brilliant work being done by Augustus in the EU as well. Mm-hmm. But again, all these things come down to timing. And when it's right, hit the ground.
Well, timing and like what I'm hearing too is market fit. Is like, so you know, and part of market fit is value, is the perception of value. So like, you know, maybe when you were in that room talking about the deal for your MIDI controller, he didn't perceive the value, and therefore he wasn't willing to offer it. Where on the other hand, when you were in that room in London with the other sellers and you felt there was something magical, that was value. Like there was a perception like, oh, there's something I can do here where like where I will be valued, and so there's a market fit between what I'm offering. And then also, like with regards to the content, the lesson you learned in DJing about consistency is like you realized it's a matter of just getting the content out. And that's kind of the value proposition you've been offering, is that you have consistent content, consistent access to the smart people who know the things about Amazon selling through that content. And so you found a market fit.
Yeah. So if I like to kind of use the music industry as a parallel universe as well. So let me quickly explain a quick concept to you. Back then in the dance, because I was a DJ as well, what I had was I had my own record label, put my own records out, but where you made your money was your DJing. If you put out regular records and they were classed as good, promoters wanted to book you, therefore you had more gigs. I had the Kiss show as well, which allowed me to try out new tracks on the Kiss show to a larger audience. Yeah, so I had all of those things in place, but none of that matters unless you're putting out good records consistently, because you won't get the gigs. Now, if we look at what we do now in terms of in the Amazon world, my studio is the product development or business development side. You go through a process, you build something, it's creativity, then you get it to the market. The podcast is my Kiss show. My speaking work is the DJ gigs. So I run all of those parallels together. Right. Now, without the podcast, I wouldn't have a lot of what I had. The speaking gigs, I wouldn't have created the agency. I wouldn't have done Seller Sessions Live and sold that out, because it would have been, I didn't have the podcast to sell it out on the back of, because of the content that you put out. I wouldn't have done Seller Poll unless, like in the music industry, I forgot to mention, I used to host the Breakbeat Awards with Annie Nightingale, MBE from Radio 1. So I've got 8 years of experience of doing awards. So I see an opportunity with what's going on in our world, and from that experience was able to do the awards as well. And then of course the final part of the jigsaw recently has been the Branded by Women conference. As well, like the online summit. So all of these things gel together.
They all gel together. It's like it's all leveraged on your following, right?
Yes.
You're leveraging your following, and you're generating consistent content, consistent things of value to your following to maintain that following.
Yeah.
So it's a feedback loop. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look at it that way. I don't really look at numbers and stuff like that. The way I see it is, I learned a long time ago, the more you give, the more stuff comes back.
Right.
So I can't push enough out the door, because that good karma and everything else. Treat people well, be kind as best as you can with people, and then you just see what happens from there. And think with content, I don't count it. We've done over 500 shows. It's just relentless. You just got to keep putting, it's a new world out here. You just keep putting content out. Your job is to maintain the quality. And I know that not everyone's going to listen to every episode, but there's something for other people. So there's a new engagement, a new audience coming in. And then you've got the current audience have been fans of the show and enjoyed that. And I don't think of it that way. I just think of, you do the content, you do the content, you do the content. I don't think, oh, okay, well, I get 2 leads off that. Does that make sense? Right.
No, absolutely. You're naturally expressing yourself. You're doing the things that come naturally to you, that people gravitate towards, and that maintains, and that's what develops the following and maintains it. So you're not strategizing about it, like like what am I going to do to make sure that people stick around, whatever. You're just doing your thing. And by doing your thing, you've naturally attracted the people that like it when you do your thing.
Yeah. And the thing is, the reason why I did it as well at the very beginning is because I looked in the UK where it's scarce. We're looking to everyone over in the US, and it's like, I want to build that bridge. I want to be able to meet new people, and I want to learn. And it's like, I've got the best mastermind in the world in some respect. It might not all be on camera, but I get to ask all these questions so I learn, right? And I build relationships, but also people over my shoulder are listening in. If I ask the right questions, they get the right answers for their business. So it's a win-win for the audience. It's a win-win for me. I build relationships with the people. And then, sometimes you're going to get stuck and you go, I really could do help with that. I know that, I've tried, hopefully I've built enough goodwill that if I phone 99% of people in the industry go, oh, can you help us out here? They'll take my call. And I think that's really, really good. And your network is so important when you build this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's truly everything. And that's amazing. And I really think that it's quite a story of a culmination of how kind of the things you do, the lessons you learned brought you to a place where you are just naturally doing the things that you're good at in terms of talking with people, connecting with people, being a trusted advisor within the community. And it's what people are gravitating towards, and it just works. And it seems pretty effortless from over here. Like you're just naturally expressing yourself, and it works.
Well, the thing is, I learned a long time ago, I'm a bit older now, I'm 44. You've got to be yourself. Like, people walk around with a mask on. That's a heavy weight and burden to carry, So my thing is, you probably get to the age where you don't really care what people think. There are importance of what the people that you like and you would like you to think well of you. But yeah, you just get on with it, I think. And if you can just be yourself, and like, while I'm on call, off call, there isn't a change. I don't suddenly go into being someone else. This is what you see is what you get. And I have to accept that that's not going to be for everyone. But luckily, touch wood, so far, I get good feedback from people, and I get a lot of love and support from people. And I'm vice versa. I help as many people as I can.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I appreciate you going into depth on that whole story. And I'd love to have you back and talk more about pay-per-click and some of the things that you do in your day job. And, and so hopefully we'll get to do a part 2 and go into more of that. If people want to learn more about you, if they want to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
Best place to go to is sellersessions.com, or if you want to drop me an email, it's danny@sellersessions.com.
Great. I appreciate it, Danny. It's always a pleasure. It's always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for being here.
More than welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.